Back when I was in college, me and my mates were obsessed with long rides and hikes into mountains and forests. We all grew up in rural areas with not much besides bushland and a few neighbors in a small town. Every day after school, we went to our hangout spot, maybe a quarter of a kilometer into the woods behind the old shop. There was a small opening, just big enough for around 10 people if they had tents set up. We always sat on a few of the rocks around the center. Anyways, I'll get into the actual story now. Most of my friends are still in our group. At the time, we all had moved to larger, more populated areas. So we all made contact on Facebook and organized a ride into the forest to go camping next to a river in the forest for 2 nights. According to Riley, the main organizer, we would be going on a small back road through the forest in his truck. And so we did. That day, we all met up and we got ready for the ride. I won't give much details here, since most of the ride was just us talking a lot during the long ride into the forest. Maybe once or twice we spotted an animal on the road, and that was about it until we had arrived. Once we did get there, however, the place was lonely and desolate. At that point, we didn't even stick to the back roads and we just drove between trees until we reached the marked point. From there, we set up our tents, unpacked, and got dinner ready by the campfire. Now, we were all daredevils, and so we decided to go out for a walk to explore the area. I wish we didn't. We didn't even have to walk 5 minutes until we stumbled upon something completely unexpected. Strangely enough, there was a cabin. It looked untouched for at least 50 years. The weird part is that this area had only been explored once, and that was 40 years ago. It didn't take long for Madison, the only woman in our group, to dare us to go in. Keep in mind, 2 of my friends were back at the campsite. We didn't want to look unmanly, and so we did exactly that. The door was jammed, so we carefully entered through the back window. It was dark, eerily dark, but we turned on our flashlights. It looked like an early 1950s era home, but completely destroyed and covered in plants. Strangely enough, there is a fuse box outside. We went right past it since we thought that obviously it wouldn't work because we were in the middle of nowhere. Also very strange, there seemed to be a small, old 1960s looking TV that was plugged in. On the top frame of the TV, there read 3 numbers. 116. This obviously made no sense at all. After a little bit of shoving old furniture and other objects around, my friend Isaac whispered, "Guys, you need to see this." He rolled back an old, dusty carpet to reveal a bunker with the same 3 numbers. 116, but this time in a logo. It had a triangle with the 3 numbers inside. It was locked as well. We all wanted to find out what it was, so we had the stupid idea of trying to turn on the power. And to our shock, it powered on. The TV was just static, producing a very loud sound. But under the loud static, a radio broadcast played. It was some ice cream van music with a little girl's voice saying random numbers. It scared us enough to unplug the TV. Everyone was as equally freaked out, and we tried the bunker next and it opened. It was pitch black straight down, even with the flashlight. That's not what scared us off though. What scared us off was the sound of whispers coming from the hole. We all froze up and then the music begun, along with the little girl's voice saying numbers. I don't have much of a memory after that, but my friend Madison tells me that we all bolted back to the camp and left without grabbing much, and just our essentials. I've been thinking about going back there someday, to finally face my fears and find out what that truly was. I had a ton of nightmares about it after that, but eventually, we all forgot that it ever happened. That isn't the reason that I'm writing this story though. The reason is because last night at around 1:30 a.m., I was browsing Facebook when a little message popped up at the side of my screen. One new message from 116. At first, I was confused since I never added anyone called 116, nor did any of my current friends change their names. Hesitantly, I clicked on it, and then my screen froze for a second, but the message was a link to a website. There is no preview to the link, nor could I hover on it and show the URL. It was just a link. I noticed the profile picture and it all came flooding back to me. I sat there for what felt like hours, comprehending the situation, but eventually my curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked. It crashed my PC. I tried starting it back up, but now it smells like smoke, and so I stopped. But now the nightmare started again. I have no idea what to do. All I know is that I need to go back and finish off whatever is down there. I'm taking a shotgun, gasoline, and matches to burn that cabin and bunker down. I'm currently hiding in my car right now with only 2 bars of reception. This will likely take hours to upload, so when you read this, I'll probably be somewhere else. Now for the story. So I tried to get in contact with my old friends, but I only got 2 responses, and they both refused. And so I went alone with a shotgun, gasoline, and a lighter. I got up in the morning and I saw my reminder about going back there at nearly 6 in the morning. I had to get ready quick so I could leave early because I didn't want to be out there alone at night. I barely managed to get dressed and skip my morning shower. Thankfully, I remembered to bring everything, so my long drive began. It felt extra lonely now that I was without my friends, and driving, getting closer and closer to the forest off the main road. Nobody was there to talk to me like last time. Not that important, but anyways, as I approached the back road turnoff, I had a bad gut feeling. But I told myself it was because of the fear of the place in the past. I knew if I didn't get rid of that place, the nightmares would continue, and they were unbearable. And so, I continued on the back road. I should have turned back, but it was much better having the nightmares than what happened. For now, I'm going to skip the driving part as it may not really be that important, just like last time. Maybe every now and then, I would see a roadkill, but other than that, it was an empty dark void. Things changed quickly when I exited the back roads into the bare forest. It was about midday by now. I was exhausted of driving against endless trees, but I didn't want to stop for a rest, in case of a bear or some strange creature attacking me. Yes, it sounds ridiculous, but why don't you be in my shoes during that situation? I looked at the map and I realized that I needed to turn left into the trees right now, but I nearly didn't. The forest was eerily darker than the rest of the forest, and it was midday. But being the stupid guy that I am, I turned into the forest with my headlights on. The rest of the drive was around an hour and a half long. I won't put any information about it here since there was literally nothing but darkness and trees. Not even birds or animals. So quiet that I started questioning if it was real or not, and you could hear a pin drop. A very creepy area that probably haunted me even more than the first time. This is the real part of the story. After driving in circles for what felt like years, I finally found the river. I didn't find my old tent, but at least I found the place. Thankfully, now the forest was bright and I could see like it was day. And so I got out of the car and I looked around. A strong feeling of nostalgia hit me in the gut. It brought me back to my good old college freshman years. I wish I could go back if I'm being honest. I unpacked, all alone in the very quiet forest. Not a single cricket, bird, or any sound at all to be heard within at least 10 kilometers. I was alone, with just the leaves and twigs crunching under my boots and my gear. At that moment, I really had the feeling to turn back. But then I thought, Why would I come all the way out here just to chicken out now? I'll be fine. Gut feelings always have a reason to them. Trust me. I tried to think back on the way that I got there, but I somehow didn't remember at all. And so I took a lucky guess and I went over to the river. The only thing that kept me sane being alone in that place was my shotgun. I don't know how long exactly I was walking around like an idiot looking behind me every 2 seconds, but it felt like my entire life had passed. Unfortunately, I did find the cabin off in the distance. It looked nearly identical to how it did 10 years ago. I got ready to walk over to it, and I lit a cigarette to stay calm. It felt like time had stopped, it was so quiet. All you could hear was the crunching beneath my feet, over and over. The closer I got, the more surreal everything felt. I was a grain of sand in the middle of a planet of trees and emptiness. I finally reached the door, and then remembered that I needed to take the back window. But then I thought, what if I just burn it down without going inside? That thought stayed in my mind the entire time, but I needed to know what was down there. Curiosity got the better of me, and I went around the back to see if the power still worked. Surprisingly, it was off, different from how we had left it last time. I carefully flipped it back up and the power turned on, and then I thought, what if there was a generator power in it? I thought I was a genius for thinking of that, and I guess I may have been right. One by one, the lights inside flickered on. Their bulbs nearly shattered, but they looked brand new at the same time. The first thing I did was go to the bunker. It was still open. This got me excited and scared at the same time. I threw a rock down to see if I could hear the bottom. It must have been around 5 seconds before I heard it hit the bottom. But the weird thing is, it sounded like it hit carpet. Not too bothered by this, I dropped a flare down to see if I could see the bottom. For the first time, I saw light from the bottom. It looked like a 90s carpet with only one pathway ahead. It looked like I could get reception if I needed to from there. And so I descended. It only took me 5 seconds until I heard a click and the rusty old ladder came out of place from the wall and I fell down. I hit the bottom. Thankfully, the fall wasn't that bad though. None of my gear was damaged, but my left shoulder felt broken. Only one pathway was straight ahead, and not too far ahead was a massive blast door, with, you guessed it, the number 116 on it in a triangle. At this point, I wasn't sure if I should continue, or try to fix the ladder and leave. The weird thing was that this place looked new, like somebody had cleaned the place not even a week ago. I wasn't entirely sure what I could do from here, since my shoulder was throbbing hard with an intense pain that ate the entire left side of my body, and I felt dizzy from the surreality of the entire situation. I didn't have a choice, so I tried to push open the blast door. It took a lot of effort with my damaged shoulder to push it open enough for me to fit through, but when I did, I wasn't really sure what to do. It felt airtight in there, like a vacuum. It was bright enough to see the area, but my vision started to slowly tunnel until I blacked out. I woke up in a different area, sitting down on an old wooden chair in a room, with only a desk in front of me. I could freely move around the room and even exit, but something caught my eye. A photo in a small frame on the desk in front of me. It was a photo of me, my wife and daughter, but I was crossed out with a black Sharpie. Many thoughts went through my head at this point. Was this all planned for me? How do they know my family? I was at the breaking point and I was having a full-on anxiety attack, and I threw up all over the floor. This made things even worse from that point on. I felt constantly like I was going to drop dead, like someone had taken a swing to my skull with a steel baseball bat. Thankfully, I still had my gear on me, including my shotgun. so I carefully and quietly loaded it as I prepared to explore the area and get the hell out. As I slowly opened the door, the strongest smell of bleach hit me hard, harder than I had ever imagined. It gave me a headache just to smell it. I looked both ways but only saw the steel hallways, like a prison but with minimal rooms. I turned left, looking down every hallway before entering it, to be sure that nobody was around. But someone was around. I was completely oblivious to the fact that I was now in a weird jumpsuit, all gray. I turned the corner and nearly fell to the floor in panic. A woman stood there, not facing me, but when she heard my sudden gasp, she turned to face me. She looked just as shocked as me. What she did made my blood run cold. She put a finger up in her mouth as an unnatural-looking, mummified being came up behind her. The thing had its face covered with bandages, which made it blind, I assume. It was clicking like a bat, using echolocation. I'll always have that picture in my head of when she accidentally sneezed and alerted it. It slowly turned around to face her. The pure shock on her face will never leave my soul. The thing grabbed her by the neck and brutally threw her onto the wall. It had to have been the worst thing I had ever seen. Fragments of her brain and skull were on the floor and a bit of her eyeball rolled over to me. I stood there watching it for what felt like days, not making a single sound. Until I turned around and I laughed. I was so scared at that point that I almost felt like giving up. But then I remembered about family. I think these tunnels may go on forever though. They seem to extend way further than the forest, and I assume there are more entrances somewhere, whether that be in the city or in the forest. I noticed there was a door different to the rest, a worn away sign on the door that said, "Head of Unreadable Office." I took my chances and I crept over to find out that it was unlocked. And so I went inside and I locked the door straight away. I think I may have found my answer to what this place is. A clipboard on a meeting table that read, "Experiments." For my own sanity, I wasn't going to read it, but somewhere inside me really needed to. And so I decided to put it in my backpack for later. After I saw that thing tear up that poor woman, I was extra careful around every corner. I really don't know what my plan was after that, since I knew no other way out besides the broken ladder, and I had no way of tracking how long had passed. Possibly hours went by, searching door to door, finding nothing but offices and testing cells. Eventually though, I found something different. Emergency exit. I realized that there was a keypad to unlock it. I nearly just gave up then and there since I had no code for it. But something inside of me told me to read the clipboard, and that is exactly what I did. Log 3, exposure to chemical 116X. 3 test subjects were placed in a cell. All were exposed to the same concentrated 116X. Test subjects showing extreme signs of aggression and loss of vision. I stopped reading after that, realizing that was not important and finding the keypad code was. Desperately, I searched and when I got to page 9, I found emergency exit and office keypad code. I felt a sigh of relief hit me as I copied the code into the keypad. Before I entered the last digit, I remembered why I came here in the first place. My brain was going wild at all the thoughts right now. I slowly reached for the gasoline and I poured some on the ground. It wouldn't take much to burn this place down since the floor was carpeted, or so I thought. I entered the last digit, but instead of the door opening quietly, it set off the fire alarm across the entire facility. I ran and I closed the emergency exit. It was a staircase going up, I assumed to the surface. I wasn't running too fast until I heard an ear-piercing screech from the lower level, unnaturally loud enough to do some permanent damage to my ears. Constant ringing. I reached the final staircase and used my right shoulder to break open the door at the top. To my shock, There was another bunker to the east of my car that we had never noticed the first time we went here. I bolted the door shut with a lock from the outside, but I knew they were coming and that I wasn't safe. I got in my car and I locked it, in fear that starting it would cause them to come for me. And it was a good move to hide under the seat of my car, as not even 2 minutes later, the bunker was furiously kicked open, as I heard the beast screech outside. It was looking for me for about 2 hours, I think. It's going to be morning in a few hours, and if I start my car to leave, they'll all kill me. I've been stuck in my car for God knows how long, and these things are everywhere outside looking for me. If I ever escape, I'll know never to come back here alone, or at all. I have enough resources to survive about a week, and then it's all over for me. This is an SOS warning. Always trust your gut.